Hello, Adam.
Hey,
Can you hear me?
you sure can. How are you?
That was so weird. It kind of just came on very quietly.
It did.
I'm trying to
Maybe
uh
it bodes well.
I'm trying to minimize my
Couldn't you
bright
clean up, Matthew?
bright
Couldn't you
light.
clean up? Couldn't you clean up?
I really
I mean, come
can't.
on.
This is as good as it's gonna get. It doesn't show cat hair too bad, which is good because this thing is covered in cat hair.
No, you can't see it.
Please excuse my
There's the
my
cat.
hoarseness, and also having to postpone so much. I go figure, got a head cold last week, and I decided I was well enough by Monday to get my, and I got really sick from it. So I'm
Was,
just now kind of starting.
was it the one shot or was it the two? The first of two?
And mostly they are you getting me okay? I just got it.
It seems like it froze a couple of times for a
Yeah, it
second.
says internet is unstable, which is I've never seen before
Oh,
on here.
interesting.
That's kind of weird. Well, if we have another problem, I'll try you back. Is it
Right.
still freezing or is it okay?
Well, not since we started talking about it. No.
Okay. Anyhow, one way that the first shot, I guess, is you get bad symptoms is if you had COVID already.
Ah,
So it's possible I had it, but who knows?
I agree. I'm paranoid. I had the chills last night out of nowhere, and I woke up very tired. I mean, I didn't feel like refreshed when I woke up, so I
Yeah.
ended up taking another. But typically, I've been very fine. Been fine, and then except for last night, and then also like about 4 or 5 days ago, I got a temperature for a few hours. So of course, everybody thinks I contracted COVID, but
Yeah.
it went away this like hours later, and my friend, one of my friends said, "Oh, you probably had food poisoning."
Well,
Like a very
maybe
mild case of food poisoning.
that's a thought.
And I think he was right. I kind of know the cul. I think I may have known the culprit. So, but
Yeah.
it's very unusual to get something like to get a fever and then it to end the same day.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
usually you
I
probably
got that on Monday and Tuesday after I got the shot. But it was never over like 100. It was mostly 99.5 and a little above
right.
that. So,
But it doesn't take much, right, to make you feel lousy.
well, apparently it's a good sign of immune response. But boy, it if that's what the vaccine is like, COVID could be really bad because I
It
felt
can be, of
really
course.
terrible, just
Yeah.
super bad body aches and joint aches and
I'm sorry.
fatigue and
Yeah.
fever. I just got sort of everything. It was really weird. And it went right through Tuesday. And then yesterday, I started to mostly feel better. So,
Well, that's good. So you're feeling more or less yourself today.
yeah, my voice is weird. That's the other thing that happened in the 24 hours after I got the shot. Actually, the cold I had didn't make my voice like this. I was just super stuffed up. But after I got the shot, I almost entirely lost my voice on
Interesting.
Monday, which is super weird. And I wasn't even like talking or anything.
Good
So,
because you know you're supposed to do like 4 or 5 songs live, right?
no,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
no.
No, as a matter of fact, I the inspiration for me to reach out. Well, there's two. One has been, a huge fan for years, so
Oh,
there's
thank
that.
you.
Sure. And then the other thing is I saw you do one of those, you know, I guess it's sort of a form of torture where an artist, in order to remain connected with their community, their fan base, right, has to do these home concerts. Otherwise, you risk, I guess, everything. I don't know, but it's such a headache. I haven't heard of anybody who hasn't gone through real pains getting it to work,
Yeah.
without just a struggle.
Well, I'm not normally on Facebook, and it's unbelievably convoluted. Like, it really is so weird. And a lot of the problems we had were with it suddenly wanting other authorizations and
Right.
not letting me get on. But now I think I know everything to do. I can kind of do it on my own.
Is there a delay? Have you experienced that part?
There's a huge delay. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's also a little bit right. Right.
Yeah.
It's right. It's like 15 seconds or something.
Yeah. It's really,
Yeah.
really long. I was surprised they
Yeah.
didn't have a faster
Right.
turnaround time of streaming.
Yeah.
I'm just getting a drink of water.
Sure. Sure. Um, let's get off the right from the start.
All right.
I picked up my copy.
Okay.
Um, and let's start talking about it from the top. So for my listeners, will stop listening or watch it. 10 minutes they'll so how there's a drop off. Like if I don't get, so I really do want to make a promote and help
Get
talk
it in
about
there quick.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and then we should anyway. So that way, I think it's just a good idea. Um, so first of all, people will may know or may find out that you record is almost entirely by yourself, produced, recorded, mixed. The only exception being your drummer.
That's right. Rick Mank, my
Right.
longtime friend, came down and played some drums, and we recorded
Where?
it mostly, yeah, at my house
In
in.
Nebraska.
Yeah, he lives in Minneapolis now, so it's a really super quick flight for him to come down. And we did it in 2019.
So
So
without any knowledge that
no.
if anybody wants to make an album in the next year or two or three, it might be by yourself also. So, but you were doing it as a choice.
Yeah, it was just this weird coincidence, and it was mastered right before uh the pandemic hit. I mean, right before, to the point where I remember I wrote a note to Bob Ludwig, who mastered it, a great old friend of mine. He mastered Girlfriend and a lot of stuff. And I remember he wrote me back and he's like, sounds like this virus thing is like, we better watch out.
Right.
And I remember that really well because it was the first time anyone said anything to me about the virus.
Yeah.
So
Especially,
it was just
and
getting on radar.
right. And in fact, so far back that we kind of refer to it as that virus thing. Yeah, because
Yeah.
what we didn't have a language for all what
Yeah, no, I
about it.
know.
So
It's just kind of amazing. Uh and yeah, the album itself is in a way such a solitary
yes,
approach that it weirdly kind of goes with the pandemic, but I really didn't work kind of at all during 2020 in terms of doing anything new. Like, I was glad I had my album in the can, and
right,
really what
yeah,
we did is hooked up with Omnivore and sort of did the artwork and got it ready to come out this January. So that was sort of the bright spot of, of my 2020, was knowing
wow,
I put
which
my little album out.
you've had the entire span of this pandemic in a way to look forward to be able to work on this project, the post-production aspects of making an album, right? And then to get it out in the world. So in a way, it's kind of it must have given you something to kind of hold on to during this otherwise really,
It kind
I'm
of
sure.
did. It was something that was like, a happy thoughts instead of just weirdness. Um, but I did a lot of more consuming content during 2020. I just watched a billion shows and movies and things like that, which I love to do anyway. So uh, it was kind of a great year for absorbing content. A lot of it I probably couldn't even remember I watched it, but I kind of
Right.
just had stuff on all the time with various percentages of attention.
Sure.
Some things I watched 70% of the
Right.
time
Yeah, yeah,
that they
sure.
would just be running, and some things were like 20% of the time. It just depends.
Um, I'm actually started doing something that even though we're kind of beginning to maybe come out of this period, fingers crossed, I started watching The West Wing. West Wing, like just because I've
I've never
never
seen The
watched
West Wing. That's a good one I should watch.
it's on. I don't know if you have HBO Max, but it
I
might be
do.
else. Good, because
Yeah.
it's all of it is there, and each episode, because it's commercial television, even though it was an hour show, that like clearly 25 to 30% of the show was commercials.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
each episode is like barely 40 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
So so it's kind of easy to get through the episode, but each one is like a movie, Matthew. It's like I have such I'm so glad I'm watching it now. Like it's very cinematic. Not
Really
surprising
high
considering.
quality. Well,
Yeah,
I've heard nothing but great things about it always. And I don't remember seeing it to watch in this last year, but I probably would have been reticent just because politics has been so hideous.
exactly.
I
I
don't
don't think
didn't
I could have watched it before this
yeah,
year. I just
before
I would have
he was
found it.
gone. Yeah.
Yeah, I just the right before the name that shan't be named.
Yeah, the former guy
Yeah, we if you say his
as
name three
Biden calls
times,
him.
got sorry.
The Biden calls him the former guy.
That's a good name. I'm just afraid of saying it three times because I'm
Yeah.
superstitious. But
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I've done a few interviews where I'm talking about Catspaw and I talk about that mastering story I told you. And I'll say, it was just a few days before what's his name completely lied about it. And that gets a laugh sometimes. What's his name?
what's his name? Um, so you made it by yourself. Um, so what did go into that decision then? If it since it was in that you made in the summer of 2019, I believe. So that means that obviously way before that you were planning on doing this by yourself.
Yeah, I don't know. I just had it in my head. It'd be fun to try to play lead myself.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't know if I exactly could or not. I just thought I'll go for it and see what it's like. And it was really, really fun to do. I really enjoyed it. Um, I did have a momentary thought when I was about 13 or something. I was a bass player before I did anything else. And at the time, I sort of had this idea that if I didn't practice for a few weeks or whatever, for whatever reason on bass, that somehow in my subconscious, I'd improve, even though I wasn't playing, just because it was in my head. Just a weird concept. And I remember at that time, I thought, I wonder if when I'm old, I'll be able to play lead guitar. Like it just seemed so impossible to do then.
Uh-huh.
I thought
Uh-huh.
maybe if I'd just been around music my whole life, I'd be able to do it. And I wasn't really thinking about that when I had the idea to do it, but I remembered it once I was sort of into the process. I had this just sort of memory of it. And, I could kind of do it. And I just sort of tried not to overwork anything and just kind of go for it and have it be fully improvised and not, perfected. And I would just play through like I would do with a session with another lead guitar player where I'd do two or three or sometimes four takes maybe. And then I'd just kind of go through and pick out the pieces that I liked. And it had this effect of kind of gluing the record together. It's a really simple record, just bass guitar and drums mostly. So um, there was a sort of sameness about the instrumentation that maybe isn't totally usual for me, but it seemed to kind of work for what it was. And I didn't know what anyone would think of it, but the reactions been surprisingly good. So I feel like Mr. can play lead guitar now.
Yeah.
I don't think I could do it live. I think I'd be too hung up. But since I was alone,
Sure, and you
you
could
just
keep
sort
playing
of
until you got it exactly the way you know.
forget. Yeah.
Um, what was going to ask you about? How do you musically speaking? How do you self-identify? What do you call yourself? Like, are you a
Uh,
songwriter? Or are you a guitar?
yeah, a singer songwriter, I
You go
guess.
for
I
that.
think
Okay. Mhm.
recording artist. Um, I guess that way, you know.
I'm not trying to hedge you in any way, but I'm just kind of curious as you, because I try to think about, so, but you were typically, you would play uh, rhythm guitars. Is
That's
that
correct.
okay?
Yes.
So, okay. Because I wasn't,
Because live, that's
that
the
makes sense. Right.
the only thing I can do, sort of. And I was a bass player first, and I
Yeah.
do play bass on all my records, but uh to be singing the song and having everybody follow along, it just seemed like I needed to be playing that rhythm guitar. So that's what I've stuck with over many, many
Oh,
years now.
this is, I have a beautiful coincidence here.
Okay.
I'm sorry to, this just, I just noticed. Where were you? Today's March 25th, 2021. Where were you on March 25th, 2000? And I think it's 2000. Maybe 2000. Maybe I got the year wrong. So I can't ask you. I have to, I wrote the wrong, I might have written the wrong year here, but I was going to, so it turns out we're talking on the 25th. I saw you at our Irving Plaza on March
Wow.
25th. Now I'm not positive what year. Maybe it sounds like even 2010 would have been way too recently. I'm gonna think it's
Were we
had to be.
playing all of Girlfriend? That's a we
You did a tour doing that?
Yeah, that might not have started till 2011. I'm
No,
not
no, this
sure.
was before that. By the
Yeah.
way, there's that too
Yeah, she is.
from the archives.
All right.
Um, no, no, this I should look it up again because I thought I was going to press you. But that's funny. It's just on today's an anniversary. Where I have seen you live. I saw
Wow.
you. I lived on the block. I lived
It
on fifth.
seems like a long time ago,
It was.
Irving Plaza. Is
It
it
was.
still
What is it?
going? Like, is it?
I'm not sure. I'm right now. I'm in the Hudson Valley, so I'm north of New York. At the time, I lived on 15th Street, though, just around the corner from, just down the block from Irving Plaza. So
Yeah.
it was such a treat to get a ticket to see you. I know you had the band, so it had to be in the first part. It had to be not long after after 2000. So probably maybe it was 2002 or something like that.
Huh. Wow.
Anyway, I also saw you play with the Thorns because I happened to work at Sony Music, and that album came out during my tenure there. So I got to see you. Now that I did write down June 27th, 2003. So maybe this was a few years later I saw you alone, but I saw you with the Thorns, which if people don't know that album, that's like kind of an homage almost, that project for you guys.
Yeah, it really kind of came out of the blue. It wasn't really pre-planned. I got a call from my manager, and Pete and
Sean.
Sean were kind of down the hill from me. I was living in Los Angeles, and they were in a studio just kind of writing. And my manager's like, "Hey, would you go down and write a song with these guys?" And we wrote this song. I was really nervous about it because mostly I never worked with other people. And we wrote this song called I Can't Remember. I can remember that it's called I Can't Remember.
Right.
And kind of sang it 3-part harmony. And the guy who was, I guess, funding the sessions, who honestly I can't remember
Yeah, it's a long
even
time
who
ago.
exactly it was,
Right.
came down on like the Friday evening, and we'd written that song, and we sat and sang it for him and played it, which was unusual too. Like, I kind of don't think I ever did that after writing a song. And on the Monday after that, they were saying, "We want you to be a band and have a name and make an album for Sony." So it was really, really fast. And then I had all these misgivings about it, but we got it together and made the album. And it's kind of cool that it exists. A lot of people liked it. We actually sold, what today would be a huge amount of that album. It was something like 170,000. We got a
Yeah.
video on CMT, and that really
That's
helped
funny.
move some units, but it wasn't enough. They wouldn't agree to let us produce the second album ourselves. And the other two guys in particular were like, we won't do it unless we make the money, because we really got very little money to do it. And then we worked a lot touring. We toured Europe and England and Australia with the Dixie Chicks,
Hmm.
and did all this stuff, but we all just became super broke, over the course of it, and they wouldn't
Unbelievable.
agree to it. So
Just the worst.
their the contract just lapsed, and we never made another one.
Well, it's unfortunate. Not that it's too late, but the thing is it's just reminds me just how horrible big distribution is, just every aspect of it. It's just so selfish, and so
Yeah,
it's so geared just towards a tiny, it's almost like the US government. It's
yeah,
only really geared, it's all really works for this little 1%,
yeah,
and
that's true.
everybody else has to struggle or ends up worse off than they were before they got their record deal. It just doesn't seem like they're
And
working.
they really talked it up to us and promised us sort of the world.
Sure, right.
They
Well,
took
that's
us
part of
in
the
there
scam.
with Donnie Einer, and they were like,
Yep.
you're going to do radio shows and make 100 grand at every radio show, all this stuff. And we were like, I doubt it,
Yeah,
but
fortunately you didn't see dollar signs in your
we
eyes
did
all the time.
almost kind of get further. Like I remember there was this VH1 event where it was I believe Liz Fair and
Huh?
uh uh what are they called, the guy from uh American Idol, oh god,
Oh, are you talking about the British guy?
Maroon 5, I'm
Oh,
trying to
Maroon
think
5.
of.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, and they were on this bill, and this big
That's strange.
special was being filmed in New York. I want to say maybe at Roseland.
Uh-huh.
And the day of the filming was this huge blackout in New York. And the
Oh,
whole
right. Of course,
thing,
I was there. Yeah, sure. I was in
yeah.
New York
And,
at the
and
time.
so we never filmed it, and we had to leave to like go overseas. So I think like the other acts got to do it later, and we never did. So it was almost like that was part of our bad fate or something for it.
Uh, I'm not being rude. It was starting to bug me that I didn't know the year that, because I guess I'm a little OCD too. Maybe I was just looking to see what year it was that I saw you at that Irving Plaza show. But it might be more importantly though, it's just this, like, such a treat. That's all. You know what I mean? It was um to see you get to play in such a small venue like that. That's one thing I do miss about New York,
Yeah.
is as many, like,
So many acts come through. Yeah.
yeah, everybody's there and you could see them. And there's a lot of these venues where, like the Bowery ballroom or whatever, there's all those,
Uh-huh.
which are really small. And
City Winery, for the
City Winery is a wonderful place. They're
last many years, we've done a lot of many times when we've played 2 or 3 nights, and
hmm
it's like around, I want to say 300 or maybe a little more,
yeah.
but they moved it now. So I'm not, I think it's probably much bigger.
Yeah, they moved it to the pier. But I don't know, like, I'm wondering um what the status of that is. They also opened up some big. It was really tragic because I'm such a fan of that place that even though I mostly talk to film folks, although many musicians over the years too, but I had Michael Dorf on because I was just so concerned about that they exist. Anyway, he came on and they were literally on the cusp of opening this place up down in the Hudson Valley, like this whole new, like, spot where there was going to be outdoor shows and lots of wine, obviously, and food.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it just sounded like such a great, and I think it's open, or there, it'll I'm sure by this summer it will be in operation. I think they managed to just hang on miraculously.
At
you
some
know.
point, they did one up in Sonoma, and for some reason, that one didn't work out. They closed it. I think it's the only
Oh,
one that ever, closed. But we play them lots of places,
right.
in Atlanta, Nashville, Chicago.
I wonder how
So
many of those
they've got a
have,
lot of them.
they do. I was just wondering if any of them had to close.
I don't know. I couldn't
Yeah,
tell you that. It's
no,
sure we've had to close
right.
as far as touring.
Yeah, I know that. I'm sorry about that. And I wonder what the return. Would you support this album in the next year if you can start to
Excuse
book?
me. Well, you know the I mean just the way it's hit like our agent, he has offices in California, Texas, New York, and a bunch of staff, and they had to lay a whole bunch of people off.
Yeah,
And I know he was just like going, what do I, am I going to retire before I blow what money I have trying to keep it alive, And from talking to him and talking to my manager, um, it looks like in the start we really won't be able to put together strings of dates at first. It's going to be like one-offs. They
yeah, it
may
makes
have to
sense.
be duo or trio shows and not full rock shows, and they'll be kind of sporadic. And then as things open up more,
Gradually,
we hope to, the way we build tours is we get a couple dates that are like a festival or a big city where we get a really good guarantee, and then we can kind of build smaller shows
right,
going
right.
between them everywhere. But I get the sense that's not even going to happen by the end of this year. I think it'll be more like next year.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Maybe some
Uh,
stuff, a few things this fall.
it also depends how, I guess, the next fall. I mean, especially in areas like uh up here where where we have real winter, like how we're doing next
Yeah.
fall,
Yeah, for
because
sure.
we're hoping we're out of the woods, but until we know,
I know. I
we keep
know.
kind of
And
that wait
people
and
have to
see.
get back, and the venues have to survive,
Yeah, I
and
know, right?
I don't even know how many of them will still be active or not. I know in the most recent stimulus, I think Amy Klobuchar got a thing in it that's called Save Our Stages, and it's
Yeah.
supposed to
Mm-hmm.
help music venues.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, just everybody's been devastated by it. So I'm just, I think about just keep recording no matter what, and go from there.
Are you able to is it do you make are you able to make a living off of publishing,
Not exactly.
merchandising? No, right? Not really.
Not really. I mean, only
Yeah, it's
touring
hard.
is really the main
It is, right.
way we
Yeah,
make money. I
sure,
do
of
get
course.
some streaming
Mm.
stuff, some publishing. I think I may be recouped again. I've never left. I've been with Sony since it was CBS Songs in the mid 80s. And for a long time, I was recouped. And 3 or 4 years ago, they actually gave me an advance, which is like I hadn't gotten in a long time. And so for a while, I wasn't getting uh, publishing payments, but we think I might be recouped again. We're sort of trying to work on that, and of course the brass has changed again, over the last couple years.
Yeah.
So they're still kind of trying to figure that out. But
Mm.
I get little chunks of money through the year, and those are barely keeping us going. The Facebook things, people tip on them,
Exactly.
and
Right. There's
that
sort of a virtual
that
tip
can
jar.
be, help me pay a month's bills and stuff.
Sure, of
So
course.
so
Right.
it's not bad.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I understand why it's really is necessary. And also people like me, it's an opportunity. Is it the remotely the same kind of experience as seeing you in person? No, but it it'll do.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's kind of works
Yeah,
both
you
ways.
wonder, like, you got to think this kind of thing is going to take over a lot for in person, even when the pandemic's over. I
Yeah,
think
right.
it's just now that people have done it virtually, it's just another tool, in the arsenal, sort of.
Hmm. Um, you're in Nebraska. You're in Omaha.
That's correct.
How far back? It looks like you've been there, settled in for quite some
Yeah,
time.
we came in. I want to say the 20 end of 2013 or 2014. I don't have it exactly in my head. So, we've been here at least 6 going on 7 years, and we both grew up in Nebraska, my wife and I.
Hmm.
She grew up in the western end of the state in Scottsbluff. I grew up in Lincoln, which is about
Lincoln,
50 miles away from Omaha.
the
And
capital.
we chose Omaha because there was the biggest airport is here, and it was the
Oh, that makes
easiest
sense.
place for me to be able to tour out of. But we both have a lot of family in Nebraska, and we've been in LA, over 20 years. And we bought a house there, and it really went up in value for a long time. Then we had the big crash right before Barack Obama was elected. And so we've kind of been waiting years for the value to kind of go back up. And we just hit this point where we thought we're kind of sick of being in a giant city. We didn't have it in our heads, oh, we're going to move to Nebraska. We just were going to go somewhere, and we kind of thought of all these different places, but we didn't really know anyone in any of them, you know,
Yeah,
and we
no,
didn't want to
it's very
be in a
true.
really giant city. So we thought, well, maybe we should go where we have some family. And my brothers has a big family with 3 daughters. We don't have any kids. My sister has 2 kids. So it's kind of like we've reunited with our siblings, and that's been pretty cool. It's
Oh,
really
that is.
been worth it, kind of, to have that grounding of knowing my family again after years of, I mean, we always saw each other over the years and we're in touch, but to be able to be around and hang out. I was here for both of my parents passing away, which was great not to be gone and feel
Right.
disconnected with that. I think that would have been really weird. So we were kind of glad. I was glad I made it here for that. Um, and it connects me a little bit to when I first started doing music. I kind of never could remember very well sort of my childhood over the
Really?
years. I had this kind of weird thing where I couldn't remember it as well as like most people could seem to remember really specific stuff.
Sure.
And a lot has come back to me since I've lived here again, and
It's
kind of gave me, I just feel more sort of roots than I felt, for a long time. So we've really liked being here. And we, we sold our place in LA, and then we bought our place here outright. So it was,
wow.
a miracle we did it when we did, because, I don't know what we'd be doing if we had a mortgage. I mean, it's bad enough having property taxes. So the house is kind of our nest egg, you know?
Yeah. Um, yeah. Well, and I'm sure you got a much more for your bang for your buck too. By the way,
Yeah, yeah,
because
we could for not as much get a really cool place. Yeah.
yeah. Um, well, you say you started. So you started off as a bass player, right?
Yeah.
And then you were playing in like a local band. Was you were still in? Was this before you went to Athens, or is this?
Yes. Yeah, this
It
would
was home.
be from about age 13 I started playing in bands. I played with a band of guys who were in college,
Really?
called the Specs.
Uh huh.
And we were like a kind of new wave cover band, and we played, college parties and proms.
You were
and,
13.
and I was 13 at first. I think I did it till I was about probably 16 or so with them, and then, did a little bit of stuff on my own after that. And I there was this club that was the rock club in Lincoln called the Drumstick, and I went there to see REM when they were only had their 45 self-made 45 on Hibtone, which I'd ordered out of New York
Wow.
Rocker. And so I kind of got them to sign my record, and they were like, wow, some guy in Nebraska has our record, you know.
That
And
is
so
nice.
they came back a couple times over the course of which they did a deal with IRS. They, you know,
Sure.
the next year they put out, I think it's Chronic Town, which is the kind of EP. And then they're like, we're making an album, you
That
know.
developed into their first album,
Yeah, Murmur
Murmur.
came out right when I was finishing high school. So about 1983. It could have been 82 in that fall. I can't remember for sure. But I had given them some tapes of mine, and Michael was really complimentary about it, sent me a postcard. And some of these girls, this girl, Linda Hopper, who was a friend of Michael's in Athens, wrote me postcards, and they hooked me up with Mitch Easter, who had produced them. And I was like a fan of all the DBs and all these people in kind of North Carolina as a teenager. You know, I was looking for people who were American, who I related to their stuff, because really a lot of the stuff I loved, you know, kind of in junior high and into high school was British. It was,
Yeah.
you know, Elvis Costello and Nick Lowe and the Buzzcocks, XTC, you know, all these things. But I was curious about America. And really through all those people, I found out about Alex Chilton. So, you know, Big Star became really big for me right before I got out of high school. So I moved down to Athens. Mitch kind of recommended it. And I just decided I'm going to go to college, UGA in Athens. That was, you know, my excuse to go down there. And yeah, went down and really, you know, kind of head first as a wide-eyed kid, sort of
What
fly on the wall.
was that based on just the fact that REM was based there, or was
I
there
think
already a scene there
there
that you
was a
felt like you
scene.
could be part of?
There was a scene. It was going. I didn't have any, you know, illusions I was going to really be part of it,
Uh-huh.
but more, I knew it was a place where people did original music and made records, independent records, and it was just a place where, you know, I had this connection where some people had said, you know, come play at the 40 Watt Club, which I was not ready to do, you know. But I got down there and just, it was kind of a magic time
Hmm.
still,
Yeah.
and got to know, you know, people from the B-52s and Love Tractor, Pylon, all these people from Athens. I was buying their records when I was in high school. So they were, you know, they were like big stars to me, you know. And so I was around and kind of got to watch REM's meteoric rise a little bit, you know, from down there. And so you know, it's weird because I was really only there 2 years, but
Hmm.
it seemed like much longer.
Right. Yeah, it
It
was
was a
jam-packed.
very
Sounds like with
formative time for me,
right. Yeah.
and I got a deal with like sort of a development deal with Columbia in early 1985. So I moved there summer 83, and we moved to New York
I was going to ask you about that.
in May of 85. And they sort of gave me money to get an apartment and get some more home recording stuff, you know, an 8 track instead of a 4 track or whatever, you know. And I made, you know, ultimately made a record for Columbia, and then my guy went to A&M, and I made a record for A&M. And then Girlfriend was like my second record for A&M, and Polygram bought them uh, during the time I was making it, and my A&R guy left. And so it was sort of in flux at the time I finished Girlfriend. And ultimately, we sold the record to place called Zoo Entertainment, which was a
Sure.
new independent label on BMG, and they took it, and it started to be successful. So um,
Well, it could have just as easily have been lost in that shuffle.
yes, it really could have been. And one of the things that helped a lot was the tape was going around a lot with young A&R people, getting just sort of passed around. And a lot of them wanted to sign me to various labels, but their bosses sort of wouldn't let them. So I kind of almost got there with lots of places, and we ended up, Zoo ended up paying some tiny pittance for the record. They ultimately had to pay uh, more once it was successful.
Hmm.
They had a contract for that, but it was the one. People really think of it as my first record, Girlfriend, and it was with that album that I moved to Los Angeles and spent the next 20 years there.
Yeah. And you managed with the subsequent albums to have significant hits to keep things moving there.
Yeah, both Girlfriend and
Sure.
100%
100%
Fun
fun.
sold really well. Altered Beast sold pretty well too in between the two, but it was a little more
These are, you can almost, by the album titles,
weirdness.
you can kind of see the Elvis, his influence. I don't know if those were your choices, but
um,
the
yeah,
attitude for sure.
yeah. Well, and I was really enamored with the old Hollywood and getting to sort of see the place where so much
Yeah.
had happened with both music and film. And I was really lucky. Like Altered Beast, the first album I made out in LA, my producer was Richard Dashett, who had been with Fleetwood Mac through Rumors and Tusk, and the White Album before Rumors. And he really had been in LA forever and kind of showed me all the areas and was
Hmm.
real enthusiastic about it. And so, I was really lucky to have, some great people to teach me about it.
Yeah.
I'm sort of a homebody. I'm not super social. So it's kind of amazing I made the friends I did and got to participate in the things I did out there.
Yeah. Um, was it a common love of music that kind of made it possible to connect
Yeah.
and to have
I
that kind of
I
social
think
life?
I think in terms of film people, a lot of actors and people want to are musicians a little bit,
Or
or
wannabes? Yeah.
aspire to be
Yeah, the
musicians.
grass is greener.
And
Yeah, they always,
so
yeah.
there's definitely a music connection. I had a lot of fans of my records who were writers and actors, so Susanna Hoffs I knew from
Sure.
kind of before I went to LA through Fred Marr, my co-producer on Girlfriend. And she brought, Mike Myers to a show I was doing.
Well, she's
And
married to
that's right. And
Jay Rhodes, so
Jay at the time wasn't, you know, uh,
is
now
right,
is a
a
very
journalist essentially.
accomplished director, but he
Oh,
was
okay.
teaching at UCLA, teaching film classes.
Okay.
And Mike sort of beat it on him and wanted to get him to do the Austin Powers project with him. It was funny because the producers of it had been students of Jay's, and they kind of worked really hard trying to stop Mike from getting Jay. But Mike prevailed, and because he'd had those big movies before, with Wayne's World.
Sure.
And we were hanging out a lot, Jay and Sue and myself and my wife Lisa and Mike and his then wife Robin. And he was just developing that script and that character. And so we ended up sort of jamming with him over at his writing room, and that out of that came the Ming T thing, Austin's band from Austin Powers. And so we were in the first movie. I think they used the music, some of the scene bumper things we did in the second one, and then we were in the third movie again.
I think
So
that
I got to see
coincidentally,
movies being made,
right. I think coincidentally, Elvis and Burt Bacharach were in the second one, unless I may be
I
wrong.
think you're right. I
Yeah,
think you're right.
it's kind
Yeah.
of because
I
they
think,
had, yeah,
yeah, they kind of made an appearance as themselves. We were sort of like a fictional, uh, you
right,
know, uh,
yeah, like
Mike's fictional band, but it developed over time. One day we showed up, one night we showed up over there, and he answered the door and had the teeth,
mhm.
and and it was like just he sort of slowly became the character.
Did you happen to during those years know Mike Viola?
Mike Viola, how do I know him?
Well, he's another well, I don't know if he's in LA anymore, but he was like an LA songwriter guy. He actually wrote music for Walk Hard and the Tom Hanks That Thing We Do, or what is it called? That Thing You
Yeah,
Do,
yeah.
which was
Uh,
sort of a similar
and
timing to.
Adam, who passed away from coronavirus, Adam Schlesinger,
Oh, Adam
also, I
Schlesinger,
think he
yes,
might have
sadly.
written that song, That Thing You Do.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah,
I thought that was they worked together on it.
they might have. It's quite possible.
Yeah.
I don't, I probably met him. I'm not
It's
sure,
okay. He was also kind of a power pop guy, and he had a deal with Columbia. I met him because his first album on Columbia. That was when I was working at Sony in the mid '90s to the mid aughts. It was just one of those things where he made some incredible albums also during that period, and I don't know how he even did three or whatever, because they just whenever they would get somebody like super talented, I just said they're I shouldn't say that, because some of the great acts that they I mean, you could say Bob Dylan is in that top tier of artists that they pour all their marketing dollars behind.
yeah,
But unfortunately, they were giving you get a tiny little ad for like a Michael Penn or a Mike Viller,
yeah. It's
and
harder.
you
Yeah,
just knew they weren't going to be there after an album or two, because they're not going to sell enough units for a
yeah.
big company like Sony
Eh,
anymore.
But I mean, at least those companies had enough money they could do a few acts that were for, their A&R people's artistic reasons or whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
Now I imagine that happens a lot less, but
right.
having the independent world we have is wonderful. Not having to hear, that they don't have the song or whatever is really nice. you know.
Um,
So I don't miss it really too much, but it was a different time, and they put money into things to make them happen.
Um, I just had a couple of. I want to respect your time, Matthew, because we've been on for a while. I mean, I'm happy to talk until I'm blue in the face, or until you're blue in the face. But I
I
also
look
know
kind
that
of blue. This light is very
yeah,
odd.
it's okay. I might be able to fix it too in post.
Oh, go for it.
We'll see. Well, I'll try to.
See if you can
But
warm it up.
right. Let me ask you one question. Controversial as he may be, Phil Spector. When I was listening to Catspaw, which is, by the way, currently available for downloading and purchasing, I like to have the package myself. But Phil Spector,
Yeah.
there's almost like a wall of sound that you create
Well, it's
with your guitar
interesting you
work.
would see that with Catspaw. I haven't heard anyone say that, but I did make an album in 1999 called In Reverse.
Sure.
And that album, I really was thinking of
Somewhere.
the Phil Spector approach. Phil Spector's probably partly important to me because of his massive influence on Brian Wilson, who's, a serious hero
Right.
of mine. And when we did In Reverse, I was trying to do the Spectre thing where, like, three people playing piano and three people playing guitar and two drummers and upright bass and electric bass. The whole album isn't that way, but several songs are. And that was really the time I most explored that, the wall of sound thing. Yeah, Spectre, I mean, it's just, he was a madman and
Yeah.
obviously, in many ways a terrible person.
Well,
But
yes, I
the
would
thing
say
he
he's a
created
psychotic
was,
killer.
yeah,
Yeah.
the thing you created was pretty cool in that time, and
Right.
uh and I like those records. Um but not the way I'm a fan of Brian.
Yeah, I would say that it, did well. I would say that it's one of the two or three times where when he opened his mouth, one time I got to see him live, like 20 years ago or something. That I found myself crying because the his voice went to the heart, right to my like to the core of my like the his voice and his knowing his story
His
and
challenges, yeah.
his challenges, his mental illness, his history of abuse, having an abusive uh father,
Yeah, pretty
and
heartbreaking.
yeah, and but all of that and just hearing him sing
And the
was
beauty that came out of it. Yeah, I
yeah,
was
yeah.
lucky enough to get to be around Brian and
Wow.
his band quite a bit. And also got to know Van Dyke Parks, who
Wow.
was, real
Yeah,
integral to
songwriter.
his time.
Yeah.
Van Dyke played a bunch of keyboards on an album of mine that I made in my home in Los Angeles. And
Which one?
Brian, I met when I was doing a tribute concert at Radio City Music Hall around 2000, 2001. And I had gone for almost 8 years not flying. I had terrible, terrible fear of flying.
Huh.
And they got a Letterman date offered where Darius Rucker, who I was singing this song, Brian song, Sail on Sailor, for this tribute, they invited he and I to go on Letterman, and Brian was also going to come on, and then we do Good Vibrations with Brian. And so they said, will you get on a plane and go to New York? We'll put you in first class with Brian Wilson. And I was like, this is great. If it goes down, I'll be like the Big Bopper or something. I'll be with, forever attached to this incredible genius.
Right. Yeah.
And so Brian, of course, doesn't like flying any more than I do. And so, and I've gotten over it and flown a million times since that time, but that was my first. And his daughters were there, his band were there, and they were all just really nice to me. They knew how much anxiety I had and what a big deal it was for me to be doing it. And so they helped me a lot through that. There's a guy named Jeffrey Foskett, who was sort of the Brian clone of the band, who could sing just like young Brian and shadow him and do
Oh,
things.
right.
And he also became a good friend of mine. So, I got to go to dinner with the band and Brian a couple times. And uh, I, went out to his house once. And when we were making In Reverse, he was in the Pet Sounds room down the hall, and came and listened, because we were doing the Spectre thing. So um, it's he definitely is limited by his mental issues, but I got to see a little bit of that real old Brian. One time when we were doing rehearsals for the thing in New York, everybody broke to go out for lunch, and I was in the rehearsal room, and only Brian was there, and he was at this keyboard and he was playing this thing, some incredible, beautiful, like, piano thing. And I was like, Brian, that's so beautiful. What is that? And he said, I know, it's Blueberry Hill. And he was playing like I would never have known.
Well,
Like it was the song Blueberry Hill.
I guess Love and Mercy had already come out or something.
Yeah, it, it
But
it had been out before. Yeah.
yeah, but I'm looking at my box of the Beach Boys, the Pet Sounds session. So I'm I might put it on after we're done.
Carol Kay played some bass on, who played on Pet Sounds, played some bass on In Reverse as well. So there's little connections. That's where my Spectre-ness, if
Gotcha.
there is any, would come from.
Right.
But
I
but
understand.
really,
Well,
I didn't use Spectre techniques on Catspaw,
I
but it
understand.
probably gives that wall of sound effect just because some of it's
There's a lot of
all rock,
guitar. Yeah,
yeah.
right. Yes, and because there aren't other instruments in a way, the guitar feels like there's layers of it going on almost
Yeah,
like.
yeah.
But um, there it is, Catspaw. It's currently available.
Catspaw.
Um, did you have to learn, by the way, just did you already know, or did you have to learn Good Vibrations, the parts? Did you have to learn it in
I
preparation?
didn't really have to. I don't even know if I played. I may have held a guitar, but honestly, I don't remember. I don't remember if
It's a
I
long
had to
time
learn
ago.
it or if I just sang.
Yeah.
I know we did it,
There
but
you go. You guys pulled it
it
off.
was exciting, to be there with Brian. I did a lot of Letterman shows in the '90s, so it wasn't like I'd never done it,
Yeah,
and a lot of Conan, after that. But Brian Wilson, it was like, we were all in awe.
sure. And most of them, I'm sure those segments are probably on YouTube, by the way. Um,
They probably are, yeah.
yeah. Listen, I really could keep asking like about Richard Lloyd, about your how what just also how you learn guitar and bass and all these things, but but just to know there's endless questions. But so we'll just do a part two at some
That's
point
fine. I'm
in the
happy to do
future.
that.
Yeah, and I'm sure, because eventually when you are doing shows again, um, I'm in a real great spot. I'm like a very short distance from Woodstock and from Rhinebeck and Hudson, New York, and it's this great area where arts flourish
Yeah. No,
typically
I
in New
know.
York. And I really like being up here. I left the city last year after my own dad passed away, and I was just
Oh, sorry
had
to.
had enough of just pandemicking and
Yeah, yeah.
in the
I
big
bet it was a
city.
tough time to be there.
Yeah,
The exposure risk. I love Woodstock. I have a lot of friends that live in upstate New York and in Massachusetts.
Yeah,
Jules Shear, who was a
yeah.
great friend of mine when I
Wow.
first moved to New York. Um, I remember it might have been the first time I ever went to Woodstock. He took me up to Todd Rundgren's house. He'd done a solo album that Todd produced, and we went to I think it was like a birthday party either for Todd or one of his kids, and we went up to Todd's house, and we could figure out the timing of it because he had just made this new album that was called Acapella, where all the instruments were his voice,
Hmm.
and we smoked some
Wow.
weed with him, and he sat Jules and I on the sofa and played the whole album, on the speakers in front of the sofa. And we were so tripped out because it's like we're,
Yeah.
at Todd's house and it's like this crazy music, and so I have fond memories of Woodstock.
It sounds like it. I wonder if he's still up there with his.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think he might.
There are a lot of like musicians and
I
filmmakers who've
I think
established.
that Jules is there.
Uh-huh.
What I last heard, I'm not sure about Rundgren if he stayed there or not. I'll bet
Hmm.
he might be there. Who knows? We could probably find out with a click of the Google.
Are you in fact Googling him?
No,
Oh, okay, good.
I'm just I'm keeping my focus on you.
Thank you for that. I appreciate you doing that for the last hour. It was far more time, but it's so
It's
easy
my
to.
pleasure. And seriously, let's do it again sometime
Yeah,
and
yeah, for
just keep
sure.
your questions and we'll get into all that.
Okay. Yeah, we can get into more maybe technique and stuff and songwriting and that kind of thing. But thank you so much. It was really kind of imagine having a better time.
Oh, that's great. Same here.
Yeah, really. And I
Well, please be safe. I'm assuming you haven't gotten a vaccine yet.
not yet, but it's in the books. It's I have a date. I was able to book a date, but I'm hoping that I'll even get an earlier one because they're dumping more and more open, locations and
Slots.
dates
Yeah, yeah.
every week, slots every week. So I'm hoping, because right now it's at the end of May, but at least I know I
MMA.
have,
Yeah.
at least I
Yeah, I
have
have a
that.
friend in Brooklyn and he got
Okay.
early May and they're still like, we wish it could be
See, yeah,
sooner. But wow, the I couldn't believe how sick the vaccine made me. And it was only my first dose. And it's like the second dose that I hear horror stories about. So I don't know. At least I'll know what to
you'll be
expect,
all
I
right. I
guess.
mean, it's unfortunate, but I mean, at least when you get to the other side of it, there you'll have that knowing. You'll know that no matter what, that at
Yeah,
least
just to
when
I'm
it's
glad
gone.
just to get it. Believe me, it was, a big event to finally
Right.
get a vaccine.
Yes, indeed. I'm glad you got it. At least the first one so far. Um, yeah. Okay. Well, thank you,
All
and
right. Well, you
I'll
take care and be
you
safe
too.
and have fun doing shows, and we're all going to hang in there.
We are.
What
We
else
are.
can we do?
That's right. And I wouldn't, maybe in a different time I wouldn't be able to have this kind of thing where we could have such a deliberate kind of conversation, because we're both around and we both kind of are
And you
have
can
the
see each other on
eh,
Zoom is a big deal.
yeah, and to be able to just put, like to kind of think about, I don't know, focus, having
Yeah,
the focus for these kinds of conversations right
I
now
hear
when
you.
you're not
Yeah.
distracted by a thousand other things.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Take care.
Something good
I'll be
that
in
came out
touch.
of it
Oh,
all.
and I remember to thank your folks, because they were very nice about it, and I know they felt bad postponing, but I sometimes takes months to schedule something.
Well, I'm
It's just
sorry.
it's
I
just the
don't
nature.
usually ever reschedule stuff, but it was just happenstance. I got this
Right, I
weird
know. I
cold
know.
last week, and then I
The
thought I
shot.
was good for Tuesday, and then I got so sick Monday.
I
I was
know.
just like, I'm not going to be able to do it.
Yeah, no, no.
So
I'm glad. I was
luckily, I
wondering
feel a
even.
lot better today.
Good. I'm glad. So, but just thank everybody for me, and
I will
I'll
for
shoot them
sure.
an email. But
Well, Adrian said you were a great guy,
oh,
so
thank you.
he thought you were real nice about it.
You can't take things too personally.
No,
You'll never manage to do
no,
it.
don't ever.
Yeah. All right, man. Thank you.
Okay, take care. You have a good one.
You too.